I knew my brother was a pain in the ass, but the guy went from barely scraping by in retail to making six figures under my wing. Yet all he does is bitch and moan like I forced him into hard labor. It's like listening to a man who won the lottery complain about carrying the check. I gave him a golden ticket, and somehow, I'm the villain. It started off small. A few complaints here and there, mostly about stress and workload. Fine, whatever. But then it turned into passive-aggressive remarks, then full-on nagging. If I didn't answer a client message within an hour, I was slacking off. If I took a break, I was not committed. Meanwhile, this guy picks and chooses his workload like he's some executive making strategic business moves, leaving me to clean up the mess. I was the one on calls at 11 p.m., answering client emails on weekends, making sure everything ran smoothly while he sat back and enjoyed the easy money. The worst part? He had the nerve to act like I owed him something, like he was doing me a favor by working at all. He threw around phrases like, "I'm the one keeping this thing going," as if I hadn't built the damn business from scratch. I kept my mouth shut at first. I told myself it was just an adjustment period. Maybe he needed time to find his rhythm. But entitlement doesn't fade, it metastasizes. The breaking point came when he demanded I notify him whenever I was off the clock. He wanted updates like I was reporting to him. My own brother, treating me like his damn intern. And the kicker? He worked a fraction of the hours I did. His job, as cushy as it was, should have taken him 6 hours a day at most. But instead of putting in the effort, he made a full-time job out of whining. I should have shut it down right then and there. Maybe I let it slide because he's family. Maybe I felt guilty that I had my life together while he floundered for years. But all I did was enable the worst parts of him. Now, I'm stuck dealing with a self-righteous brat who thinks success was handed to me on a silver platter, all while he reaps the benefits of my hard work. And the worst part? He actually believes he's the victim here. I'm telling you, if entitlement was a disease, my brother would be patient zero. I swear, I should have seen this coming. The signs were there, plain as day, but like a goddamn idiot, I ignored them. Maybe it was the way he started acting like a boss instead of a partner, barking orders at me like I was some underling. Maybe it was the smug little attitude he carried, like he built this whole thing from the ground up instead of riding my coattails straight into six-figure cushiness. Whatever it was, I let it slide for too long, and now the monster was fully grown. The latest bullshit? He decided that my time belonged to him. Straight up. He called me at 7 a.m. on a Sunday, demanding to know why I hadn't responded to a message he got from a client the night before. And I mean demanding. Like I was some fucking call center rep who missed a shift. "I'm not going to keep carrying this business on my back if you're going to check out whenever you feel like it," he snapped, all self-righteous and indignant. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I took a deep breath and asked, "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious," he shot back. "This company needs structure. And if you're not willing to be a team player, maybe you should reconsider your role." My role. My fucking role. The guy who couldn't be bothered to work more than 6 hours a day, who cherry-picked his projects like he was some executive strategist, who literally had the easiest goddamn job on the planet, was telling me, the person who built this entire operation, what my role was. That was the moment something snapped in my brain. It wasn't just annoyance anymore. It wasn't frustration or resentment or exhaustion. It was a cold, creeping realization that my brother wasn't just an entitled brat. He was a parasite, a leech, and he had convinced himself that I was the problem. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just hung up the phone. I spent the rest of the day thinking. Not about how to fix things. No, that ship had sailed. I was thinking about how the hell I let this happen. How I let him manipulate the situation to the point where I was questioning my own work ethic, my own commitment, my own goddamn sanity. By Monday morning, he was blowing up my phone again. I ignored him. I knew what was coming. And sure enough, by noon, he was at my doorstep, unannounced, banging on the door like a debt collector. I opened it just enough to stare at him through the crack. "What do you want?" "What do I want?" He let out this humorless little laugh, shaking his head. "I want you to explain why you think you can just disappear when we have a business to run." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "You mean my business? The one I started? The one I let you join out of the kindness of my heart? That business? His jaw clenched. I worked just as hard as you. I actually laughed this time. A full, bitter laugh that felt like it had been stuck in my throat for months. You wouldn't last a fucking week without me. That set him off. His face went red, and for a second, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. Instead, he just spat. You're a selfish prick, you know that? You act like you're the only one who matters, like I haven't been killing myself for this company. I crossed my arms. Killing yourself? You work 6-hour days, cherry-pick your projects, and still have the nerve to complain. Do you even hear yourself? He scoffed, shaking his head. You just can't stand the fact that I'm doing well. That was it. That was the moment I knew there was no coming back from this. He actually believed it. In his head, I wasn't the guy who had carried him out of his dead-end job and handed him a 6-figure career. No, I was the enemy, the villain in his little self-serving narrative. I stared at him for a long moment, letting the weight of it settle. Then I shook my head and turned back toward the house. We're done here. Yeah? Well, don't come crying to me when this business falls apart without me, he shot back. I didn't even look at him as I opened the door. Go fuck yourself. I shut the door in his face. And just like that, my brother was officially somebody else's problem. It should have ended there. Door slammed, conversation over, done. But my brother? He doesn't know when to quit. The next morning, I woke up to a flood of emails, client complaints, messages marked urgent, confusion over projects I wasn't even handling. And there it was, right in the middle of all the chaos. An email from my brother, sent at 3 a.m., with a subject line that just read, "Let's see how you like it." I stared at it for a long minute, blood pressure climbing, because I knew exactly what this little shit had done. He ghosted. He walked away from every responsibility, every client he was supposed to be handling, and left it all to burn right in my lap. A part of me almost respected the pettiness. Almost. But mostly, I just wanted to put my fist through a wall. I spent the next 12 hours in damage control, pulling late shifts, answering every panicked email, fixing every goddamn problem he had left behind. By the time I was done, my head was pounding and I could barely see straight. And my brother? Radio silence. No calls, no texts, nothing. The coward had vanished. By day 3, it was clear he wasn't coming back. Not that I expected him to. Entitlement like his doesn't just sit quietly and self-reflect. No, people like him double down. They justify. They convince themselves they're the victim in a story where they burned down the house and lit the match. And sure enough, by the end of the week, I started hearing the rumors. Apparently, my brother was telling anyone who would listen that I forced him out, that I had taken advantage of him, manipulated him, and then betrayed him. Betrayed. That was the word he used. I laughed when I heard it, not because it was funny, but because it was so goddamn predictable. The second he realized he couldn't leech off me anymore, he turned the whole thing into a sob story where he was the tragic, overworked hero and I was the evil mastermind pulling the strings. He wasn't just playing the victim. He was rewriting history. And people? They ate that shit up. I lost clients. Some of them, people I had worked with for years, sent me emails saying they felt uncomfortable continuing to do business with someone who could mistreat their own family. Mistreated. Mistreated. I wanted to scream. I want to hunt him down and drag him in front of every single person he lied to and make him say it to my face. But that's the thing about people like him. They don't fight fair. They don't face consequences. They manipulate. They slither. I could have exposed him. I could have laid out every fact, every chat log, every piece of evidence proving exactly what happened. But you know what? It wouldn't have changed a damn thing. The people who wanted to believe his bullshit would always believe it. Truth wasn't what mattered, perception was. So I let it go. I cut my losses. And I did what I should have done a long time ago. I stopped carrying dead weight. Business was rough for a while. I had to rebuild, regain trust, prove myself all over again. But at least I was doing it without an anchor around my neck. And my brother? Last I heard, he jumped into another business, some half-baked startup with a guy he met in some networking group. And within 6 months, the whole thing went up in flames. Turns out, you can't coast on entitlement forever. Sooner or later, the real world kicks in. And when it did, well, let's just say karma handled the rest. You ever wake up one day and realize you wasted years of your life trying to help someone who didn't deserve a damn thing from you? Yeah, that's where I was. It had been months since I cut my brother loose, and I should have felt free. Should have been lighter, relieved. But instead, I felt like I'd walked away from a car wreck, alive but barely, with bruises that ran too deep to see. I'd spent years giving him a way out of his dead-end life, carving out a path he didn't have to struggle for, and the entire time, he had been waiting to stab me in the back the second I stopped bending over for him. And the worst part? He enjoyed it. The attention, the sympathy, the fake martyrdom. He got off on the idea that he was the wounded party, the tragic brother who was wronged by my supposed greed. But the world had a funny way of evening the score. The first crack in his bullshit fairy tale came when he burned his next opportunity to the ground. Some startup nonsense with a guy who had too much confidence and not enough sense. A 6-month disaster that ended with my brother walking away with nothing but debt and a bruised ego. Then came the real downfall. He tried to weasel his way into another company, spinning his sob story for sympathy points. Except this time, the people in charge did their homework. And guess who they called for a reference? I had the email open in front of me, just staring at it. It was almost too perfect, like the universe was handing me the final nail for his coffin and asking if I wanted the honors. I thought about lying, thought about giving him a pass, letting him crawl his way into another easy paycheck. But then I remembered the sleepless nights, the stress, the way he turned me into the villain in his pathetic little drama. So I told him the truth. A week later, I got a text from him. Just one word. Really? I stared at it for a long minute before typing back. Really? And that was it. The last time we ever spoke. I like to say I felt guilty, but I didn't. Not even a little. Because at the end of the day, I didn't screw him over. I didn't ruin his life. He did that all by himself. And I finally stopped cleaning up his mess. Time does this funny thing. It keeps moving whether you're ready or not. Months turned into a year, then 2, and life kept going. My business? It survived. Hell, it thrived without the dead weight. Turns out when you're not spending half your energy managing someone else's bullshit, you can actually focus on making things better. Who knew? I won't lie and say I never thought about my brother. Some mornings, I'd wake up and half expect to see his name pop up on my phone, some desperate attempt to reel me back in. But silence? That was his last gift to me, and I took it with open arms. People always ask if I regret it. Cutting him off, letting things get so bad. And for a long time, I didn't know how to answer. Regret? No, there's no regret in doing what had to be done. But disappointment? Yeah, that lingers. The weight of knowing that no matter how much you give someone, no matter how much you break yourself trying to lift them up, some people will always find a way to drag you down with them. Last I heard, he was bouncing between jobs, never staying in one place too long. The same pattern, the same cycle, just new victims. And me? I was done being one of them. I used to carry a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. But one day, I woke up and realized I didn't feel a damn thing anymore. And that's when I knew I'd finally won. Because when you stop caring about someone who never deserved your time in the first place, that's real freedom.